Welcome back to Insight Review as we look back on the defining stories of the past 7 days. France's far-right leader stirred up controversy during a trip to Lebanon this week. Marine Le Pen was scheduled to meet the country's Grand Mufti, the protocol for which required her to wear a headscarf. Le Pen walked away from the meeting when she was asked to cover her head. However, officials say she was well aware of the requirement well in advance of the meeting.
I said yesterday that I wouldn't wear a headscarf, and they didn't cancel the meeting. So I thought they would accept the fact that I wouldn't wear the headscarf, just like it was the case when I met Sheikh El-Azhar, the highest Sunni authority worldwide, who accepted that I wasn't wearing one. I will not put the headscarf on. There you go. They tried to impose it upon me. Well, you can't impose that on me.
With me on today's programme, the editor-in-chief at the International Interest, Sami Hamdi, and the Home Affairs editor of the London Evening Standard, Martin Bentham. Martin, do you think she knew what she was doing in creating a fuss?
Possibly, although I suppose there is the point she made there that she told them the day before she was going to turn up and not wear a headscarf. I suppose that, yeah, she has some defence in that
Sounds
case.
a bit of brinkmanship, doesn't it? If she was told beforehand the usual protocol, Miss Le Pen, is to wear a headscarf.
Well, I'm sure, and of course it won't do her any harm with her core supporters back home, and especially in France where the wearing of the headscarf and the veil and so on is a very contentious issue. So
yeah, but that's doing in Paris what you want to do in Paris or France or whatever it is. When you're abroad, don't you? Isn't it a common courtesy to fit in with the customs of the country you're visiting?
I think there's a bit of. I think she'll be sacking her international affairs advisor, mainly because I think when she went to Lebanon, many Lebanese have dual citizenship with regards to the French, and I think she thought that there were particular tensions between the Christian community and the Muslim community, and I think she wanted to come to Lebanon and sort of,
stir it up a bit.
Stir it up and give a voice to what she sees as the oppressed Christian minority in Lebanon in particular, which failed. However, as Martin said, it wasn't too bad a gamble, because back home, when her core supporters are seeing this on TV, all they're going to think is, oh la la, this is really, really terrible that they're doing this to Marine Le Pen.
having said that, we've had US people like Michelle Obama going to Saudi Arabia and not wearing a headscarf, for example. And so it's not the case that whenever you go to even a place like Saudi Arabia, which is quite strict clearly in terms of its treatment of women and their dress, that you always have to do that. It depends on the circumstances, doesn't it? And of course, there's a general...
But maybe there was a conversation had and an agreement arranged. It seems... Who knows?
Yes.
It was a deliberate provocation, perhaps. She's not going to win, according to the latest opinion polls. She's going to win round one, I think, as we've been reporting most Fridays. And then she will get defeated by either of the other guys, if they're assuming they're still in the race. But we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Let's go to Gambia now, shall we? Gambia's new president has wasted no time implementing widespread reforms, this week arresting the country's dreaded former spy chief, who stands accused of masterminding forced disappearances and of torturing prisoners. The new president, Adama Barrow, has set free more than 170 political prisoners who are being held without trial, as Fidelis Umbar reports.
10-year-old Modu Kaur has never seen his father. Manlafi Kaur was a soldier at the Gambian presidency when he went missing in 2006, 5 months before Modu was born.
He left for work but didn't come back home after his shift ended. We went to look for him at his place of work and the police station but could not find my husband. Later, we read newspaper reports and heard news on the radio that he was captured and taken to prison.
Those who were lucky to be alive were detained behind this prison wall, known locally as Maitu. One of the survivors is Madi Sise, a journalist who was arrested for publishing what Jame considered an unfavorable news report, and his newspaper was shut down.
Sami Hamdi and Martin Bentham are with us this week. Sami, he had a long time to wait, didn't he? He had to be patient before he actually got the reins of office. He's in office and he's getting on with what he wants to do.
See, getting on with what he wants to do, I think the issue here is this. Let's put raw justice aside for 1 second with regards to putting people in prison, putting them in the courts and whatnot. In Egypt, when President Morsi came to power after a revolution, he put Mubarak on trial and he tried to loosen the iron grip of the army on the country. And as a result, a coup took place. Even Nelson Mandela, hailed as the man, in South Africa, and even he found that he couldn't exactly get rid of the entire apartheid regime and had to negotiate with the security forces to come up with some sort of amnesty commission in order to prevent a coup taking place to kick him out of power once more. Now, I think with Gambia, which was ruled with an iron fist, there are many in the military who will be saying, I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to accept these widespread reforms. And I think, even though it's nice to hear about political prisoners being released and whatnot, I think he's running a very slippery slope with regards to whether there will be a backlash from the security institutions within the country.
So he should have done nothing then for the time being? Should he just
No,
sit in the chair and not issue any presidential decrees at all?
No, I don't agree with that. I think actually he's being brave, he's taking it on, and he's doing the right thing. It's a country that's been hideously blighted, really, by repression, corruption, and so on. He's trying to clean it up. Of course, there is the risk that you talk about, but it needs courageous leaders, doesn't it? And it's a very, very welcome sign, I think, that somebody, unfortunately, Africa has too often been blighted, hasn't it, by leaders who've been in it for themselves and ruled with the iron fist and so on. And here's a man who, from what we can see, is trying to change that, and that's all to the good, I think.
But he's got to keep an eye on the army and what they're doing, doesn't he?
No, 100%, and I agree with everything that Martin said. The issue is, this is realpolitik. In the real world, you cannot simply just pick military leaders, put them in court, and then put them in prison, and justice prevails. The reality is, if you do that, you encourage a backlash, you're kicked out of power, and we go back to square one in which they're ruling. There has to be a very carefully navigated, carefully negotiated transition in order to ensure that we can actually create a true, genuine democratic environment.
We will keep an eye on how that transition goes. This week on TRT World, we have brought you news of the arrival of winter tourism in Pakistan's Swat Valley. In a moment, we'll discuss the renaissance of a region that was under Taliban control for almost a decade. First, here's just some of Sally Ayer's report.
They call it the Switzerland of Pakistan. But at this resort, there are army checkpoints manned by gun-toting policemen.
We can't compare with Europe. It will take a lot of time. But at least it should be accessible. There should be a decent place for people.
Pakistanis can now enjoy their country in a way they never have.
I have not seen snow before, but I'm much excited about this.
These mountains were off limits for over a decade when the Taliban ruled the region. Their oppressive control deemed skiing un-Islamic. Militants have lost ground in Pakistan and terror attacks have dwindled. But on occasion, the Taliban and Daesh-affiliated groups carry out large-scale bombings. Here on the edge of Swat in the city of Mangora, the Taliban once hanged their opponents from electricity pylons. Now a local businessman is investing in a 60-room hotel.
Well, Sami Hamdi and Martin Bentham are here. I don't know if you've been skiing to Pakistan?
I haven't. I have actually been up in Kashmir, where they have also ski resorts, albeit in the summer. And of course, it's beautiful, fantastic. And indeed, I've been in Afghanistan in the mountains there.
Yeah.
And again,
the land of enchanting beauty, says the website that advertises all this.
Exactly, I'm sure it is. And obviously, you see from the pictures there, they're absolutely beautiful and fantastic. And of course, unlike parts of the Alps, they've got very reliable snow in that part of the world. So there's a lot to be said for it.
So maybe all those Westerners will be heading further east, won't they?
Indeed.
This is Malala Yousafzai home, of course, where she got shot by the Taliban, and she came from this part of the world. Extraordinary to see it in that context.
I think it's an incredible story. It's very refreshing to hear something positive about Pakistan for once in the news, and I think people should genuinely go and promote it and better it.
We'd like to go.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Martin, let's go.
All right. Well, we'll have to make it a combined Insight team tour there to try and check out the things. But certainly, the question will be, I suppose, whether tourists will be reassured that it is a safe place to go. That would be the question.
Well, of course, you always have that question. Indeed, it happens in Europe, of course. We've seen tourism decline in parts of Europe. Because
Americans are told not to travel to Pakistan under any circumstances at the moment. That's the official advice, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, at the moment, obviously, there is a security risk there and people will be deterred. But hopefully they can allay those fears, get a firm grip of security, provide proper security in that area, and then, hopefully there'll be more positive news.
And the tourist dollar is pretty useful.
Very
that part of the economy?
Very useful, particularly for that part of the economy, particularly given that Pakistan still has many economic problems that it needs to deal with as well. The government, it's a welcome break for the government, and I think it's something they should genuinely continue to encourage.
Sami and Martin, thank you both very much indeed. We're going to end our programme with the Insight Bite, a little something that we feel you should know. Now, you may have heard of parkour, the extreme sport where agile athletes use everyday areas like parks as obstacle courses. Well, one man in China has taken things to the next level. German athlete Jason Paul has taken his sport beyond its urban terrain as he puts his free running skills to icy winter tracks at the Harbin International Ice and Snow Sculpture Festival. He braved temperatures of as low as -25 degrees Celsius as he showcased his skills jumping through towers and bridges, all of which sculpted from ice. And that's all from me for now. I'm Martin Stanford. That was Insight Review.